I work as a senior lecturer of university pedagogy at University of Helsinki. And first of all, I want to thank Andreas, Janna, Antti, and all the organizers of this event for inviting me to have this lecture here today. Like Andreas just introduced, I think this conference provides us all a wonderful opportunity to discuss about these highly topical themes, and I also hope I can provide some food for your thoughts here in the very beginning of this conference. So the topic of my presentation today is cultivating expertise in learning of life sciences. And this relates to the project that I'm currently working with my team called CELS, coming from the words cultivating expertise in learning of life sciences, which again links nicely to the theme of the conference. Okay, a couple of words about the structure of the presentation. So I'm going to present a couple of paradox or perspectives related to the development of expertise based on the latest ideas in the research field. And I will start with the steps or levels that seem to be necessary for expertise to be reached. After that, I handle about different types of expertise, and they're focusing on the concepts of routine and adaptive expertise. And lastly, my aim is to provide for many of you as educators some ideas how we could facilitate reaching of high level of expertise in higher education. Okay, let's start then. So biodiversity loss and climate change, where this background plant called jääleinikki also relates to, are examples of wicked problems, solving of which requires new ways of reasoning and inferring, like Andreas just told. And actually, we don't exactly know the specific knowledge or the set of skills that future experts will need. But what we know is that they need flexible reasoning skills to solve remarkably complex and those multidisciplinary and still unpredictable problems. Thus, this time calls for so-called adaptive expertise. But because expert is often such a relatively loosely defined concept, let's define first what I mean when I speak about expert performance. In our research, we rely on the definition and work of Professor Anders Ericsson, who was perhaps the most well-known and groundbreaking researcher in expertise research. And according to him, expert is a person whose knowledge structures on some specific content area are organized in a way that allows them to solve problems exceptionally accurately and efficiently, even in adverse conditions. Such expertise to develop takes time and a lot of work. I actually like Ericsson's idea that talent is way too overrated and work is the thing that allows true expertise to develop. According to current understanding, the development of expertise requires domain-specific processes at different levels. First, adequate conceptual understanding needs to be acquired, and this level often requires so-called conceptual change, and let's come back to this soon. During this first stage of expertise development, students acquire a large amount of concepts that are linked together in a semantic knowledge network. And gradually, more concepts are added and refined, and more and better connections are made between the concepts. And this is relevant in systemic thinking that, as we know, is also one of the central sustainability competencies. And in this second level, so-called macro concepts and scripts start to develop. And we will get back to this also soon. And finally, one should learn to link and flexibly use this theoretical knowledge in practical problem-solving situations and experience agency. And it is very important to note here that even though I speak about levels and stages, the knowledge and the associated skills to use the knowledge are thought to develop simultaneously and interdependently. Okay, let's focus on the stages more detailed. Like said, at the first stage, the learner acquires a large amount of conceptual knowledge that becomes linked with one's prior knowledge. Learning always means that we create personal meanings to things. And thus, prior knowledge plays a huge role in learning because we process information relying on our previous experiences, knowledge, attitudes, and so on. And prior knowledge typically supports learning when it is in unison with knowledge to be learned. However, prior conceptions that are in conflict with the new knowledge can hinder or even prevent learning. And this results in the need of conceptual change. And conceptual change is a concept that refers to learning processes where one needs to change something existing in one's knowledge structures. As a result of conceptual change, previous conceptions get new meanings, like when you realize something really important that used to stay hidden. For me, for example, one meaningful learning experience was when I was preparing for matriculation examination in biology, like almost 20 years ago. And I was reading something about process of photosynthesis, and I realized that almost all goods that we utilize in our everyday lives, such as food, oil, and other fuels, wood, stuff like that, have been produced by green plants as a result of photosynthesis. And I still remember it because it was an unforgettable moment. And let me tell, houseplants got a promotion and they almost became family members. And I guess we all have moments like that. I also think that conceptual change type of learning plays a role in sustainability. We have to fundamentally change our mindsets and ways to see the world to reach a sustainable ways to live in this planet. These conceptions that are in conflict with current scientific idea are called as misconceptions, naive conceptions, or alternative conceptions. And the problem is that misconceptions often are robust and they are extremely hard to change. One reason for that is that many scientific concepts are sort of counterintuitive, or our everyday experiences often promote developing of misinterpretation. And earlier in learning research, it was somehow implicitly assumed that conceptual change is something that is relevant when considering learning among children. However, nowadays we know that conceptual change type of learning is needed also at university level. And here is one example from our previous study where we asked first-year medical students to draw the structure of human heart and indicate with arrows the blood flow in it. And this is a scientific model and one student's drawing. And for those of you who haven't studied human biology for a while, the most central thing in a human circulation is that oxygen-rich coming from lungs and oxygen-poor blood, which comes from other parts of the body, they do not mix, which makes the circulation system so effective. And this is a very basic thing studied several times during school years. However, this in the right-hand side is an authentic drawing of one medical student who had drawn anatomical structures very nicely, and also the septum between the right and left ventricle, but still draw an arrow to wrongly indicate that blood would flow through the heart, missing the basic idea of circulation system. And there were several students having these very same misconceptions, and also some other misconceptions existed in this study. And you may read about them from this article if you are interested. But the point here again is not that there would be something wrong in our selection system for study programs to universities. No, definitely not. Medical students in Finland are extremely talented, they are motivated and skillful students. But the point is that misconceptions do exist even among the most brilliant students, and even among experts, according to latest results. As this, I think, challenges us all to stay open, aware, and also approving for the possibility of misconceptions. We also should understand that correcting misconception is a natural process in learning, although we typically try to hide our errors in various ways, but that can be harmful for learning. Okay, let's move on. In the second phase, called knowledge integration, large amount of lower level conceptual details become clustered under higher order concepts. And knowledge integration enables experts, for example, to effectively retrieve large amount of information from their knowledge network because of direct links that can be made between the first and last concepts in certain line of reasoning, skipping, for example, some intermediate details. And this type of processing sort of clears up cognitive space, allowing experts to exceed typical cognitive restrictions, such as a very limited working memory capacity. And this stage is relevant when considering systemic thinking that requires considering of complex, simultaneous interrelations. At the further stage of knowledge integration, automaticity to learn tasks and routines start to play a role. In medicine, for example, it has been well established that this phase leads to a situation where the students do not actively use that much basic biological knowledge while reasoning, but they operate more with macro concepts and generate certain types of fast tracks for reasoning, scripts. However, as we will later notice, utilizing of these fast tracks and routine is sort of a two-edged sword. On one hand, it makes routine cognitive processing more effective, but on the other hand, it may be a problem for adaptability. And in our research project, we have been investigating students' processing of information utilizing eye tracking methodology. And based on the results of our studies among pharmacy and medicine students, the script activation may be detectable from one's eye movements. And in our studies, novice and more experienced students read case texts, and although older students were faster processors of these case texts in general, they spent relatively more time in text parts that included a macro concept that activated a script, eventually leading to a correct solution for the case. Additionally, we have investigated university teachers' so-called professional vision. And based on those studies, we know that teachers' conceptual understanding mediates and colors the way what they notice and how they interpret and what they consider relevant in classroom situations. And for those of you who are not familiar with eye tracking methodology, here's an example video showing how one's pupils move when reading a text. And as can be seen here, reading consists of fixations. The pupils are relatively stable, and saccades, which are very rapid movements of pupils. And knowledge is acquired only during these fixations, which is why we are interested in the duration of them. Additionally, rereading typically indicates strategic processing, and we are interested in that as well. Finally, in the third phase on our journey towards expertise, one should learn to utilize theoretical knowledge in practice. However, typically this is a challenge in education, especially in life sciences, where students learn a large amount of theoretical knowledge, but they have only limited opportunities to practice important skills due to time restrictions or other reasons. And additionally, typically students get too little feedback related to their personal development and skills, hindering also their experience of agency. Thus, in higher education, we should actively aim to design learning activities that support students to use the theoretical knowledge that they learn. Such activities can be, for example, case tasks that require the similar mental activities and processes that are faced later in work life. Additionally, new technologies such as virtual reality can provide opportunities for students to practice their skills several times, make errors, and get more personal feedback. And therefore, we in SELS project collaborate with software developers, and we designed and investigated learning in augmented reality in pharmacy laboratories. And I will show you a video from our study where part of pharmacy second year students accomplished a laboratory practice utilizing augmented reality smart glasses, guiding their laboratory work and providing timely and personal feedback during the work. And the comparison group worked with traditional paper instructions. And the study supported the benefits of the AR technology during a laboratory course. Okay, so this was about the levels what comes to the development of expertise. However, this is not quite enough. We should also be interested in the quality of expertise. Future experts need adaptive and flexible reasoning skills, as said, in solving remarkably complex and unforeseen problems such as pandemic of severe infections, antibiotic resistance, biodiversity loss, and climate change. In addition, the frequent changes in the current work environments and rapidly changing society calls for experts who both possess the required domain expertise and can quickly overcome changes and are able to update their competencies. In that, future experts need flexible reasoning skills that exceed the conventional and traditional ways of thinking, that is, adaptive expertise. However, universities are often criticized for not educating graduates with sufficient ability or expertise for innovations, although they succeed well in familiar tasks. And furthermore, research has found that although all experts are able to solve familiar types of problems quickly and accurately, some have only modest capabilities in dealing with novel types of problems. And this is partly because developing routines, that is a natural part of expertise development, as explained before in this presentation, they help to prevent cognitive overload. But the downside is that the routines may become so automatized that experts are not aware of them anymore, resulting in only modest capabilities to deal with novel types of problems. And in addition, some experts focus on applying knowledge and procedures to address new cases and solve problems, and are also more apt to use new cases or problems as opportunities to learn and extend their knowledge. And such findings have led to a field of study of qualitatively different types of expertise, so-called routine and adaptive expertise. And adaptive expertise is considered as fundamentally different conception of professionalism instead of the next step following so-called routine expertise. And according to Erickson, those individuals who reach very high levels, they do not simply accumulate more routine experience, but they intentionally and constantly extend the active skill building process for years and even decades with suitable training tasks outside their current realm of performance. Thus, as briefly mentioned before, utilizing of routines or those fast tracks is a double-edged sword, meaning that it can either help or hurt you. On one hand, knowledge integration makes routine cognitive processing more effective, but on the other hand, it may be harmful for adaptability. For example, under certain conditions, some experts exhibit cognitive biases, such as tendency to view situations or problems as simpler than they really are, leading to misconceptions and worse performance. However, despite agreement that adaptive expertise is a worthy goal of university education, quite little is still known about adaptive expertise capabilities of university students, nor about ways to develop adaptive expertise and support it within university education related to learning of life sciences. However, at least something is known, which is good. So, firstly, learners should regularly confront with novel situations and new tasks, new challenges that go beyond their current level of reliable performance. And secondly, students should be allowed to make errors and get feedback. And it is important that a link is made between the errors and the to-be-learned knowledge, highlighting the importance of feedback, of course. And thirdly, students should be encouraged to try out different solutions and discuss about those with their peers. And these learning activities related to the concept of deliberate or purposeful practice, which means practicing that constantly and meaningfully aims to stretch the limits of one's so-called comfort zone. And this is a fundamental truth about any sort of practice. If you never push yourself beyond your comfort zone, you will never improve. And lately, I have become quite fascinated about the idea how all this relates to the concept of creativity and innovations and hence also entrepreneurship. Because like said, adaptive expert finds new questions, new solutions to familiar tasks, is able to think outside the box. And for that, students need safe learning environments to test even crazy ideas. They need to get constructive feedback and support from their peers and more experienced supervisors and teachers. Okay, it's time to wrap up the main messages of my presentation. So facilitating the development of adaptive expertise is currently seen as vital aim in higher education. And this is because continuous and rapid changes in science and in societies cause that we don't know today the specific set of skills and knowledge that will be necessary for future experts to succeed in the decades to come. But what we do know is that it is crucial for experts to be able to use their knowledge and skills adaptively to face the challenges of unforeseen conditions. And for this to become possible, one needs to construct a solid basement for their expertise by acquiring adequate conceptual understanding, by integrating the knowledge under relevant macro concepts, and by learning to use the knowledge meaningfully. Additionally, one should regularly challenge oneself to leave the comfort zone and try something completely new. And this undoubtedly results in that every now and then one gets lost, makes mistakes, and finds themselves in situations where they need to start all over again. However, this should be seen as a natural part of learning and creating something completely new. Because like I said before, even the top experts, they have misconceptions. They make mistakes and then they rise up learn from their failures and continue. So my very last point is that when educating future life science experts, we should encourage students to be brave enough to try new things, make mistakes, or even getting lost every now and then. And this is relevant also for us as researchers or teachers or whatever, because only then we will have a chance to truly develop and bring something groundbreaking to scientific discussion. Because like one poet, Thomas Tranströmer, have said, deep in the forest, there's an unexpected clearing that can be reached only by someone who has lost his way. And here are my references today. Thank you very much. You are my colleagues. I'm glad to have an opportunity to work with brilliant people, and here are the most relevant people working within the CELS project. Most of us are learning researchers who have some kind of multidisciplinary background in life sciences. But thank you for your attention, and now it's time for comments and questions.